So here, your chapter is things I wish I knew about the pursuit of happiness. What type of person do you think should read your chapter?
Um, I think anyone who has strived or looked and achieved certain amount of success or the things that they wanted in life, and then realized that maybe that wasn't all it was cracked up to be, that the end result wasn't this permanent state of joy or contentment, something that we all seem to chase, but someone who feels that that's missing from their lives. They have tried doing all the things that we are taught to do. They've checked off all the check boxes that we need. And at the end of it, have found something lacking and something wanting, a drive or something that seeks something more. And I think this chapter is meant to help people who have tried turning over various things, various rocks, various paths. They've searched and sought for a long time, but haven't quite found what they're looking for. And I think what I've tried to do with this chapter is take 10 years plus of investigating, searching, reading, trying all kinds of things to understand this. And the reason I tried to do that was to really explain this to my children. I've got four kids who are at various stages in their lives of development, and I wanted to share something with them that would give them not necessarily a roadmap, but maybe a series of questions to ask themselves that would make it easier for them to investigate what's actually true about their lives and what actually makes them happy. I can't hear you guys.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say is one actionable tool that somebody could use from your chapter?
I think the most important thing you can do is actually be aware of your own thoughts and patterns. So I describe in the chapter about how to observe your thoughts, how to pay attention to certain words that you use, things like should and shouldn't, must and mustn't, are words that we've learned to use in conjunction with a lot of the conditioning that we receive through our early childhood, our parents, our society, our schools. And there's this concept I talk about in the chapter, which are these five C's around conditioning, around comparison, around confusion, around conforming, and around consumption. And the way in which all those things work is by working through the words that we use to talk to ourselves. And I think all of us have this experience of a voice inside our heads, and what I ask people to do is to really pay attention to that, because that voice is actually talking you through all the conditioning and programming you've actually had over your lifetime. That voice that's going through your mind all the time is reflective of all of that. And if you stop and pay attention to it, you can actually start to pick out the things that you've heard and listened to and sort of assumed and taken on. And that allows you to kind of piece apart these different things and really figure out what makes sense for you. So I really encourage people to pay attention to their thoughts, use meditation, use breath work, use whatever modality helps you find some space. But that space and that peace has the answers for you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Finding the space and the peace has been super useful for me too. It's not always something that I've succeeded in, but it's really just about being intentional with it. And the intention has probably been the biggest game changer when it comes to this type of stuff. And your chapter does a fantastic job of teaching people how to have different types of intention so that they can start making progress with this and just progress along their journey. So really
Yeah.
beautiful stuff. Appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah, and if I may add as well, what I absolutely loved about Zahir's excerpt there is, he's encouraging you to figure out who you are and like what does happiness look like for you? Like what actions could you take based on who you are, what your preferences are? There are a lot of self-help books out there that tell you do XYZ and then you will feel this way. But it's so generic, that advice, because we're all so different. So I absolutely love that You know, we're all different. What modalities work for you? Pursue that, create your space. And that's why this is such a great addition to our book, Things I Wish I Knew About Happiness and Success, because you are creating that space for high achievers like yourself, Zahir, who constantly keep going from one project to the other. When they achieve that, then they're looking to expand or broaden their network, but they're not really creating those pockets every day to give back to themselves, so they feel ready and excited to keep going in that pursuit of achievement. So I just wanted to add, excellent read, highly recommended to everybody, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Thank you. That's really great to hear. I
Absolutely.
think, just if I can add one thing, I think one of the things that we do find is that we get pulled into this belief system that says we have to strive and achieve and do more in order to achieve something meaningful with this gift of life that we have. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to pursue things, or to strive for things or to be better, but to understand the source of that drive to be more or to strive for more. Because, like you said, we each have different tendencies, physically, mentally, etc. And if we start to just blindly follow paths that people have laid out, what we don't end up doing is figuring out the one that makes sense for us. And so taking a path less traveled, like this quote really spoke to me, because taking a path less traveled, it wasn't so much to find a new path to give everybody and say, here, take this path. It's more to go, hey, look, there's lots of paths. All these paths lead to the same place. What you need to do is figure out the one that works for you. And the way you get that is by being more observant and being more aware of what's around you, so you can figure out what's been programmed and what's truly yours. So I think that was a big thing, because there's been so much, I think, like you said, we follow a lot of inspiring leaders and thought leaders and people who've achieved in the 5 a.m. wake up club. And I don't have an axe to grind with any of them. I think they're all valuable ways for people to discover who they are. And I think when we get away from discovery and we start to preach and we want a doctrine and we want everyone to follow what we do, that's when we start to get off the rails in really helping people figure out this stuff for themselves.
Perfect. What would you say to someone who's a little bit unsure about starting to write, and particularly writing their own chapter?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like, you don't often picture yourself as someone who has something to say or to write, even if you've had dreams of it, like I did as a kid growing up. I grew up in a bookstore. I had dreams of being a writer, but I kind of shelved those alongside the, what other professions don't make enough money and whatever else. Like, I think I sucked in so much of that programming that I didn't really see this for myself. And then as I started to explore this and as I started to share it with people, what became apparent to me is that we're all like this. We all have some kind of gift and message to share with people. And in some places, its expression is in the form of music or art. In other cases, it might be business. It might be caregiving at home with children. It may be writing like this. And I think that process of understanding yourself actually helps to illuminate the kinds of things that you can express that come naturally to you, your tendencies, your skills, what captures your interest, what brings you joy, what you love to do. Those are the expressions of your true state. And I think this is an opportunity for people that, if you're feeling unsure, there's probably a tug there, because somewhere deep inside, you've got something that's switched on that wants to share something with the world, an insight that maybe you haven't completely given enough time to, maybe haven't framed completely. And I think that's how this journey started for me. When both of you asked me about writing something here, I sort of knew intuitively, instinctively, what it was meant to be about. But then talking to both of you and others allowed me to see what that was and how I could help people by sharing this insight. So I think for people that are unsure, I think pay attention to the fact that you're unsure, because your unsureness has two components: an uncertainty about whether it'll be successful, but a drive to do something new and different than what you're doing before. And we tend to look at both of those things and group them under one thing and say, uncertain, I shouldn't do this, and we sort of put it aside and not do it. but we don't pay attention to that second part in it. We pay very much attention to the uncertainty and the fear of doing something new. We don't pay attention to the part that's lit up inside that said, in the first place, I'm curious about writing this, or I'm curious about doing something like this. Pay real attention to that curiosity, because it's actually driving you towards doing something that'll help people. And to have partners like you that can draw out a story in people, help them refine. Like, I think the entire support system around doing this chapter was incredible. I've never felt so supported doing stuff like this before. And I think it brought out a side in me that I didn't know existed, probably had buried for so long. So I think if you're unsure, it's a sign that you should investigate this, like try it out. And if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But at least you'll have turned that rock over and figured out whether it's for you or not.
That's awesome. I appreciate the kind words.
It's
appreciate that.
like like I'm not doing this because we're doing an interview and stuff like that. I think whether you guys keep this or not, I think you should know that the kind of support that we got around this was incredible.
Means a lot.
And it made it easy. It made it easy to do this. It really did.
Thank you, Zahir. We really
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah, absolutely.